All right, welcome to season 2 of the Blackbox Diaries with Chris and Alex. Episode 1 returning after a couple of weeks break, getting ready for Christmas. And today we have an awesome industry expert, Bailey Marshall, joining us to hang out with us for the next hour or so while we get through this first episode to talk about some cool things about her journey in cybersecurity, how she became a content creator and a penetration tester, and launched her own company to deliver some awesome value to her clients. One of the best in the industry, so it's going to be a really good one. Stick around. Look forward to getting through it. All right, welcome to the podcast. How are you going?
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, it's Friday. Can't complain, just trudging out the week and finally time to relax a little bit. Although we're really into English Premier League football in my house. And so our team, Tottenham, is definitely going to lose tomorrow. So we are dreading that.
Hey, I'm sorry, Bailey. I think we have to end the podcast there because I support Chelsea.
Well, I mean, you're not a Man City fan, so at least we can all agree that Man City blows.
Fan, but at least your coach is doing well. He's close to home for me, so
yeah. Do you guys still have Poch as your coach?
It's terrible.
We liked him at Tottenham, but I'm glad that he went and failed for you, so that way we can maybe have him back one day.
Yeah.
It was like on purpose.
But, Chelsea hasn't been good for a little while, so I can't really talk too much shit anyway about football. So, anyway, working on anything interesting?
Yeah, right now I've got a lot of stuff going on, which I often do. I think you guys asked me earlier if I ever sleep, and I promise I get plenty of sleep. I also have 2 young kids, so I have to, check out a little bit, kind of that work-life balance. But once you figure that out, you can do this stupid inspirational, you can do anything. But seriously, if you can time manage, you can take on multiple things. And so it got a lot of stuff going on, doing a lot of pen tests, doing a lot of work with threat intel, looking at some stuff on the dark web. So lots of stuff going on right now for me. I really enjoyed it. It's kind of what I love to do. So offensive side and threat side, definitely my forte.
Cool.
Quick question, and I always find this an interesting question to ask people that do pen tests and red teams and everything like that. Thing that you've done on an engagement that surprised you and you thought was just absolutely top tier.
So I actually had this happen, semi-recently, and it blew my mind. I was like, holy shit, the things that I'm capable of. It was just an epiphany. I exploited a kernel level CVE. It was Dirty Cows, I think, and I was able to escape a Docker. And I looked at it, and it's, I got my little hash symbol, and I was like, what did I really just do that? Was it that easy? Because I swear it was it just found the right exploit, did the right thing. And I was like, oh my gosh. And my mind was blown. And so when I started actually pen testing, I was a little bit nervous, to be honest, because most of my experience on the offensive side had been military. And so it's completely different than commercial pen testing. And commercial red teaming, everything is just very different in that kind of arena of, offensive security. And so when I came into the commercial side, I was like, I honestly had a lot of self-doubt. I was like, I'm going to suck. I'm going to fail. I'm going to flop. And, to be perfectly frank and honest, because it's not an easy thing to do. And everybody wants the nice, shiny, I want to be a pen tester. I want to do all the hacking and stuff. But nobody really understands what that looks like until you're on the inside. And so I was sitting there and I was like, oh my gosh, I really just escaped this container. That's crazy. And I had never done that before. Not without, I hadn't even really gotten the opportunity. It was just happened to be the right client and the right test. And it was mind blowing. I was like, oh my gosh, my power is infinite. It was the coolest thing. So
I'm omniscient.
It was seriously.
Just doing the Spider-Man test. Am I that good?
Yeah. Yeah. And then no kidding, in the same engagement. So I was like, yeah, I'm pumped up. This is awesome. I exploited a different container with a different CVE.
Wow. Okay.
And I was like, you know, big head, like not trying to be arrogant, but I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like I actually did it. And that's kind of what drives me to do the offensive stuff is like getting that, like, that's the final puzzle piece. That's what I needed to do. It was so cool. Yeah, it's validating because it's like, okay, I came into this thinking I was going to totally blow it. And now I'm sitting here writing you, you know, like a 30 point, you know, these are 30 vulnerabilities that I found. And these 2 critical ones were just the coolest ones that I could have come up with. So yeah, it was pretty rewarding. So
it does. It feels good, man. It's like hitting a golf ball perfect.
Yeah. And I mean, in the same breath, it's like you're doing a service to someone else. Like you're saying, hey, I'm doing this in a controlled environment to protect you, to help you. That's the whole point of pen testing and red teaming. So it's rewarding because it's cool, but it's also rewarding because you're actually genuinely helping others.
You know, I think that's a really important point. I think that's something about why, you know, most of us do what we do, really.
Yeah, definitely.
On it, so you did say military background, so I guess the next logical question is, you know, how did you into cybersecurity and what is your background?
So I am writing on almost a decade of experience, and that decade of experience is like any career experience. So I did military ROTC when I was in college. I went and did a, you know, bachelor's degree, did the ROTC, and then subsequently left college and immediately went straight into the Army. And so there's this thing that we do. It's called Branch Day at our university. I went to Texas A&M. And so everybody gets a little card, and it's inside the card is a pin to the branch that you want to, or that you're getting. And so I had a psychology background. I was like, I really want to do military intelligence because, like, how cool would it be to think about people and their minds and how they're working and doing things? And then in the second piece, I was like, well, if that doesn't work out, I'll just be medical because psychology is also helpful on the medical side. So I'll do that. And the Army, needless to say, wanted me for neither of those positions. And so they ended up giving me the Signal Corps, which was all things IT, building the networks and stuff like that. And I cried. I cried for like 2 days because I had not wanted anything to do with IT. And so you don't really have a choice. And I had obligated 4 years into the military anyway from doing this ROTC program. And so I was like, well, you know what? I'm just going to take it with a grain of salt and I'm just going to do my best. And when I was in my initial training coming out of the university, they gave me a Security Plus voucher. And I was like, well, I'll be damned if I'm not going to pass this stupid Security Plus because they gave me a voucher and I'm not a loser. Like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to spend all of this time working on Security Plus. And I have no idea. Like, I had honestly, when I grew up, been a bit of a script kiddie, but I never thought that I could actually do that as a job. So I didn't think twice about when I got branched something that had to do with IT. Because all I was thinking of was like, I'm going to be laying down fiber in Afghanistan, and that's just boring. So needless to say, I studied really relentlessly, got the Security Plus, and was like, you know what? I kind of do like the security side of things. So maybe I will try to switch when I can into cybersecurity. And it took me about 4 years to actually do that in the military respect. But during that time, I really threw myself at a lot of security opportunities, schools, places that I could go, things that I could do with other organizations within the military. So I got the opportunity to do some really cool, non-conventional security things. And that's kind of where I got back into the offensive security side of stuff, because some of the stuff that I was doing was teaching me to do those things and then going out and implementing those. So I kind of just clung on to those opportunities. And so I loved that. It was so cool. And to not get into the weeds of it, that was where I was like, that's what I want to do. I really like that. And then when I finally inevitably switched into cybersecurity for the military specifically, they put me in a defensive role. And I was like, damn it. Like, I'm back to square one. Like, I am not where I wanted to be. But again, I took it with a grain of salt. I was like, I'm going to learn as much as I can about, you know, the defensive side of stuff, the analyst, the threat hunting, you name it. And when I left the military, I actually landed an incident response consultant position with Mandiant, which was really cool. Got to do a lot of really great stuff there. And Mandiant is such a cool name to be associated with because we're global and like huge threat intelligence organization, which is kind of where my threat intel background kind of comes into play and is interesting to me. So I kind of got to do the red teaming side of stuff at the beginning of my career. And then I got to do the threat intel in the middle. But I was still like, I really want to be in offensive security, and I'm stuck in all these defensive roles because everybody sees my last two, I guess, career, those career opportunities. I am in defensive roles. So everybody just wanted to consider me in defensive roles. And so I was like, how am I going to break into this? And honestly, I told someone this the other day. So I started my LinkedIn because I needed to find a job out of the military. And I just started posting things that I liked to do because I wanted to show others what I was interested in. And honestly, kind of bullied my way back into the offensive security side of things, so much so that I was posting stuff, and I still am, about red teaming, threat intel, and pen testing. And I was like, look, if you don't want me as a career offensive security professional, I'm just going to make you see that I am offensive security. And so I kind of did that for the last portion of, the past year, and landed myself a pen test role because of it, because someone saw some of my YouTube videos and was like, that girl can do stuff. And it was really cool. And even though they were kind of taking a chance on me because I hadn't had that commercial pen testing experience,
sure,
that's kind of where everything started to take off from, bullying my way back into the sector and then being able to do, what I wanted to do. I just was pretty persistent and kind of just wasn't taking no for an answer. I mean, sometimes you got to roll with what you get, but
no, that's true. You're absolutely right. Your background is insane. I love that. It's funny because one of the guys that I worked with, he was at Virginia Military Institute, and I worked with him a lot, preparing him for offensive security and stuff like that. And once he graduated, he actually opted not to go into the military, right? He was a cadet, and he decided he wanted to go to another branch of government, which turned out, to be exactly what he wanted to do, right? So he scored that, but he kind of had the same initial exposure where, immediately they're like, blue team, go. Right. And this kid's all about OSCP. He's like, I crushed the OSCP first shot, and he loves offensive security. So I keep telling people that are like, oh yeah, I ended up in blue team. Dude, that's okay, man. They're always going to put you where they need you until they know who you are really. Right. So It sounds like you had a similar experience where you were like, you know what? I get this, but I have a passion for and you took the opportunity or initiative to actually show that. And once that's done, people see it and they gain that perception of you as more of a fighter. You know what I mean? And I think that's awesome. Good for you. Freaking fantastic.
Yeah, had to be a little scrappy with it, like that's what.
yeah, dude. But that's what tells people, though, that you have that offensive mindset. You know what I mean? That's who you are. That's badass. I love it.
But also on the other side of that, blue team stuff and understanding blue team stuff makes you better at red team stuff anyway.
Yes, it does.
It absolutely does. Oh my gosh, there are things. I mean, I've talked to people on the red team that are like, hey, understanding what blue team is going to see when I'm infiltrating some things, because I need to know what my actions are showing up like in the logs so I can better evade some of that detection. The whole point of red team is to evade detection and to see how far you can get into the systems without actually being detected or stopped or what have you. And if blue team's seeing you just be incredibly loud on the network in their logs, like they're going to shut you down. And so for red teamers to understand the blue team side is incredibly critical. And I always like to talk about purple team because that's truly like the way to go. It's that people think like, oh, I can be a purple teamer. There's no actual purple teamer. You're either red or you're blue. Purple team is more of a concept and the way that those two things work together. It's like a process.
And I think like we touched on earlier is helping organizations and helping people. And I think that as a red teamer or a pen tester, the of what you do and the recommendations that you make can be a lot more valuable to an organization if you understand how to educate their blue team on what you did, and then also help the blue team implement those remediations so that they can make sure that if they didn't pick something up or if they didn't understand what you were doing, they can make sure that, attackers don't get to do that in the future for them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
We take a 5-minute break. Cool. Good to go?
Good to go.
All right. Bailey, I'm interested in getting your opinion on online safety. And the reason that I ask about that is in Australia, we have a few things that are changing at the moment by way of legislation. So it's quite a controversial thing. Even Elon Musk has had his things to say about it. But they're implementing essentially an age restriction on social media, including TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, I believe even WhatsApp and Google, even like Gmail and everything like that. Do you think that that's something that can help actually keep kids safe?
Absolutely not. The reason why I say that, I grew up in the 90s, early 2000s. All it takes is saying, yep, sounds like being born in 1980 sounds right. So I'm going to put that down. If there's no verification process, and think about it this way, most kids that are under 16 that don't have licenses, at least here in the US, don't have any form of identification. So what's to say that some of those kids are not going to bypass that and say they're older than they actually are? I mean, maybe it's a step in the right direction, but, knowing what I know from growing up with unfettered access to all things internet in the early 2000s, there's so many ways around it. And to top it all off, it only meets I think some of the stuff here in the US only goes up to age 16 or 17, but 18-year-olds are still minors. And so it doesn't protect them from some of the stuff that's out there. So I don't really agree that it's the thing to fix things. I think it shows that people are actually recognizing that it's a problem. I think that there's still a lot more work to be done, though.
Yeah, and I think, it's one of those things that, Alex, he has a daughter. I have two very young daughters, and they're going to grow up in a world that's going to be, so much more digitally enabled than it is even today. So, we want to do the right thing to make sure that we're safeguarding their futures online and obviously their privacy and their data and everything like that. And we can only do so much as parents. But I think that as parents, we also need to take our responsibility to take a little bit more action to know what our kids are up to, what are they doing online, what are they looking at, and everything like that. Obviously, the three of us are in a better position than a lot of people out there because, they're on my Wi-Fi, right? So I'm going to be able to see what they're doing. A lot of similarly, I always joke, like when my daughters get boyfriends, I can't wait for those boyfriends to come home and connect to my Wi-Fi. And then then the background checks start, right? But,
Yep.
I think like we need to do as much as we can as parents, but what's actually really alarming here in Australia is that I think it's like four or so now kids, like 12, 13, 14-year-olds in like a space of like 3 months have all committed suicide in Australia because of cyberbullying and things that are happening to them online.
Jesus.
And, there's also an incident at a school just around the corner from me where the kids had an online list that they were sharing around, which had like heinous stuff on it. Like, they were rating all of the women or all of the girls at the school and all of the things that they wanted to do to these. And they're sharing that around online, and then they're using that to bully them. They're using deep fakes. They're doing all of this sort of stuff. I mean, what are some of the things that we can do as parents at home, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. To preface the answer, none of this is new. Kids were doing this when I was growing up, but you know what? It was on pen and paper. I remember very specifically someone in my school having a hit list of people, not necessarily that they wanted to, like sexually exploit, but that they didn't like. And if they were going to have like a heinous incident go on at the school, like these are the people that would be on the list. And it was all on a piece of paper and it was passed around, and like people would like, it was a huge rumor mill and stuff because of something that someone actually did. And so none of this conceptually is new. There's been bullying around for as long as people have been people. We all kind of suck in some way. And so, but the bottom line is that the online stuff makes this kind of activity more accessible. And I feel like parents are giving, there's two sides of it. Parents are either not at all caring about what their kids are doing. They're saying, here's a phone, here's an iPad, here's access to the computer. I don't care what you do. Please get away because I work from home and I'm busy and I don't have time to parent you.
Yeah.
And then there's another facet of that. The other side of the coin is that there are the parents that are, not really interested in letting their kids have access to anything because maybe they're scared. Maybe there's something that they've heard online and they haven't done their research. There's those two different spectrums of I'm not going to let my kid have access to anything and I'm going to let my kid just go rogue. And when the kids go rogue, there's no real, monitoring of what they're doing online because the parents are busy doing other things. And this is not to the whole point of what I'm saying is to not dog on parents' decisions to do that or the other. The point is that we don't have a system in place to really educate parents on, and quite frankly, the people that are around our kids, educators, other industries too, doctors and stuff need to know this stuff as well because mental health is a huge thing when it comes to kids and how they're interacting online. There's no real education there to say, these are the threats that your kids are actually facing. These are the consequences of what can happen. Here's some case studies about it. And it was funny because one of my girlfriends and I, Jennifer Funk, had a talk at a local B-Sides in September, specifically on this topic. And we were saying, hey, here's some stuff that's going on online. And this is what your kids are doing. And this is what they're experiencing. And some of the things are leading to suicide. There's two cases that I can think of specifically where kids are being financially sextorted. It's called financial sextortion, where there is a group of, it's specifically tied to a group of, I wouldn't call them threat actors. It's a bunch of dorks in Nigeria that are called the Yahoo Boys, and they're targeting boys specifically. And they're posing as young girls and saying, hey, I like you. Here's a nude photo. And it's like an AI generated photo, or it's something that they've stolen from someone else. And then they're coaxing them to send their nudes to them. And these boys are like, this is normal teenager stuff, And so they're sending these pictures to these scammers and they're turning around and saying, okay, now I have your nudes. I have your friends list from all of your social medias. And I'm going to send this to everybody on your friends list, everybody in your family, if you don't send me money. And these minor boys are getting terrified. I mean, can you even imagine how that feels? And the fact that the way that it happened, I wouldn't want to go tell my parents when I was a teenager that I sent nudes to someone, right? Like that's just a scary, overwhelming thing. I'm already overwhelmed because I feel like I made a mistake and now I'm being threatened with it. And these boys are, resorting to suicide and things that cannot be undone. And then in addition, with the rise of generative AI and some of the things that are out there, I just saw a news article actually recently that someone took their own life because they had developed this relationship that they thought was a realistic relationship with this AI, chatbot. And they had disconnected so much from everybody else that they were friends with, were family with. And then it had to have hit a point where they realized either this wasn't real or they just couldn't take it anymore. And they had disconnected so much from real life that they chose to take their life. And that is scary stuff. I'm a parent myself. And the stuff that we hear from other parents, like in the tech community specifically, they're like, well, we put up firewalls. I have PFSense. I have a firewall. I can see all the traffic that goes in and out of my house. And my kids are not, or they'll use like threatening things like, my kids know better. And like, do your kids know better? Like they're teenagers. They're going to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Correct.
And you having, network devices on your, in your house, that's great. Okay. But they have friends that also have phones whose parents don't care what they're doing. They're going to go access that stuff through their friends' phones or at school. And so there's no middle ground right now.
Whatever.
Yeah. So there's just no middle ground.
We talked about that actually, Alex and I, in...
Yes, we did.
I think it was the last episode of last season.
It was the last episode, yes.
Yeah, there was a kid who had had a relationship with a generative AI, thought that he was legitimately, talking to Daenerys Targaryen from Game of Thrones and was in love with her. But the generative AI basically convinced him to kill himself.
Yeah.
And he did in the name of love. Like, what what is happening? Technology it's amazing for us in the day-to-day for work, but at the same time, it's absolutely terrifying as a parent.
Yeah.
It is. And let me tell you, so with that, Bailey, you coming from like a educational background in psychology, right? There is the human condition is an interesting beast, right? We have this, we have everyday life, and then we have the one part of ourselves that only belongs to us, right? And that's called our privacy. When you get to the point where, maybe people around you don't care for you so much, maybe it's very difficult for you to make friends and stuff like that. And then, you end up, sheltering yourself, right? At this point, you're sheltering yourself in your own room, and you're talking to some AI subject or one of those, sextortionists, right? And, you think you found, finally this person that gets you, and, they've manipulated you into sending, nudes. And then they decide that they're going to say, okay, well, fuck you. I'm going to send your nudes to everybody around you unless you give me money. Okay, so now what you've done is you've completely, their outside life is already demolished, right? So there was only down. And then once you take away their last, I guess, their last shield, which is privacy. I mean, they get this feeling where there's nowhere left to go, right? And then they end up, sometimes committing suicide or doing something else very rash. And it is heartbreaking. It's absolutely fucking disgusting what they do. And Bailey, one thing I wanted to ask you is, me being enlisted, I had a lot of time with soldiers. I'm not certain exactly what your career looked like, but I would like to know. I had a lot of soldiers that were almost victimized or did fall victim to sextortion. And I'm curious if you saw any of that in the military.
I did not have any experience with that, either anybody in vicinity of me or in hearing about it through the grapevine. What I did hear about a lot was, and we can kind of chuckle about this from being military, is people trying to get into relationships with others because they had military money, they have benefits and stuff.
Yes.
And then they would turn around and they would manipulate those relationships. But those were real people trying to get a benefit in a completely different way.
Sure.
But you're absolutely right. When in that situation, in the situation that you alluded to, both of it is, hey, I am building this sense of trust between you and I'm manipulating my way into that trust between this relationship that we have. And then once you're kind of inside, it's so easy to implode everything. I mean, not to get too dark, but that's why people stay in abusive relationships. Everything looks fine and beautiful on the outside. At first, everything's great. People are love bombing, all sorts of stuff. I could get into the psychology of it. And then when things start to get tough, it gets really tough. But the people that are on the victimized side are so invested in what they already had. And it's the same thing with everything online nowadays. These kids, they're getting so invested in this relationship that they have with a fake person. This could go to cyberbullying too. Now they are so ingrained into what people think about them that it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy where everybody thinks this about me, so I must be that, so I am that.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a lot of psychology. I used to get asked a lot how my psychology background transferred to my offensive security background. And Very well. I always say there is someone behind a computer doing the thing, and you have to think like the hacker, think like the threat group, think like the people that are out there sextorting other people. And if you want to say it's AI, and it is, that's a programmed language model. Someone had to program that language model. Someone was still behind a computer doing that, not necessarily interacting with the people, but someone created that language model to interact in that way. It's all psychology.
Yep.
True.
Yeah.
Very true. And I mean, like, realistically as well, like social engineering, like if you understand psychology, it's going to make your social engineering campaigns just a little bit better.
Completely. And I know that you had asked previously, like, what parents can do. And I know we kind of got off on a tangent of, like, this is the stuff that's going on right now.
Sure.
So the bottom line is that parents need to educate themselves better on what the actual threats are. What does that look like? Okay, so my child is on TikTok. I've neither decided that I'm going to have complete, let them have complete access to it. And I've not decided that I want them to not have any access to it. Because to be quite honest, if it's not TikTok, it's Instagram, or it was Facebook or MySpace, or, whatever new thing that comes into play. And so what do I need to do as a parent or an educator or a medical professional or whatever to support the children around me so that they understand what the threats look like, what they are, and what they can do about them if they come across them? Because, like I said, there's not a lot of middle ground. In addition, I don't think there's a lot of people out there that's actually making that information accessible to parents. So you and I know how, we all know how to research stuff because we're all, in offensive security, and half of our day is researching different CVEs or things that people are doing. So we know how to research stuff, and we understand, for the most part, from a technological perspective, why this threat is important. But people in regular, just everyday roles, a lot of parents are not in tech, and they do not understand why someone having access to chat with your minors on Roblox is a big deal. And it's important to drive home the why, because I can say all day, don't let your kids have TikTok. Why? Why can't I let my kids not have TikTok? It's like the why. And so I gave a talk with a girlfriend and I, Jennifer Funk, and we actually started an organization together very recently called Future Proof Security that tackles kind of this exact gap that we saw and this need in the community.
Awesome.
Because nobody is acting on that. And we're like, well, we're technical. I have an offensive security background. I know what hackers do. And if it's not hacking, I can at least understand from the psychological perspective. She has a lot of security knowledge. She works predominantly on the blue team side. And so we're trying to bridge the gap between the technology and what's out there, the threats, and the parents and educators that are surrounding these children. Ultimately, you do have to make decisions for your children as a parent, but you should also be equipping them with the knowledge and understanding of what you're actually talking about. Because what happens when they go off to college? They're going to do what they want, because now they have free reign. And so how are they going to be prepared?
So,
100%.
I know we're kind of going over, but I do want to bring up, like, having a daughter. I know we've beat it like a dead horse, but one method that I utilize, and I don't know whether it's the right or the wrong answer, with my daughter, she's an interesting critter, right? Like, I don't understand a lot of the things that go through her mind because I haven't lived that life, but I do understand how disgusting the world of cyberspace can be, both as a warfighting domain and on the other side, the darker side, right? And what I kind of did was, when she first started getting into, like, oh, the social media is neat, right? I didn't stop her from going on there, but I did personally introduce her to some of the less happy things on the internet. And when I did that, it wasn't meant to desensitize, but maybe allow her to see what wrong is online. And I believe it worked to an extent. Of course, they're going to do what they do. But I continuously communicate with her about, like, hey, have you ever had an email like this come in or whatever? And I'm like, well, here's what I do to those people. And my goal is not to teach her how to be a hacker, because I know she's all into health. I feel like if you can teach them what an attack looks like, they can identify it. They can just say, fuck off. You know what I mean? What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So the bottom line that Jen and I talk about is communication. And so what we're trying to do is equip parents to communicate those things to their kids and how to communicate, because you have a great background in security. You can understand it. You understand what a phishing email looks like. You understand what it looks like when someone is potentially perusing for personal information. We all get that. People that are not in this industry, and even some people that are in this industry, they don't understand that. So they can't speak to their children about that. I mean, I liken it to the fact that in the United States, for the most part, teenagers can drive at 16. Okay, there's a reason for that. For one, you're never going to let your teenager get in a car without you first thing and just drive off and say, see you later, I'll come back. And then, there's a process of you going through doing a learner's permit, if that's your choice, driving with them and teaching them how to do it. And then there's a portion of time, 2 years, call it, because, they go off to college and 18 typically, or they do their own thing, that you spend the next 2 years saying, okay, here are the things that you did. Like, I got into several car accidents when I was in high, backed into everything because I had a truck. Stupid decision for a first car, but I had a truck. Sure. I backed it into everything. Someone ran into me, but that whole time it was essentially, hey, your parents, my parents were with me and said, okay, this is what happened. This is where you screwed up. We screwed up in the safety of this bubble that we have here. So this is how you know what to do when you go out and you do your own thing. It's the same thing with all of these cyber tools and online.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good points.
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody loves an analogy.
Yeah. Facts.
It was a good one.
And go for launch.
Cool. So, Bailey, talk to me about your opinion of the OSCP Plus.
Ooh.
Everybody's favorite hot topic.
Controversial.
Everybody gets so mad about it. Okay, so the bottom line is the OSCP Plus was created to meet a requirement for organizations that require you to have an expiring certificate that makes you have to reapply and retest. That specifically looks like some government entities that we have here in the US. That is the only reason that was created. And maybe there are some other commercial organizations that might apply that, to their practice. That's the only reason. OffSec didn't make it so that you had to take a new certification just to level up. You can, if you have your OSCP, you have your OSCP. That's it. Just be happy with the OSCP and don't do it again. Like, that's the bottom line. And that's pretty much the industry recognized certification. But everybody gets so bent out of shape about the OSCP Plus. It was created to meet a requirement. I've heard from a couple of people that have taken it that it's a little bit harder on some of the modules that they have. They introduced a little bit more content into it too. But that's it. Nobody's forcing you to take the OSCP Plus. Like, that's what I just don't understand.
I'm so glad to hear you say this. You're right.
True. But hear me out. When I did my OSCP, I remember one of the things that was, I was researching it and I'm like, I'm going to sit it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do all this stuff and research everything. One of the selling points for it was that they did say, we're not going to have certifications because that need renewal because we don't believe in revenue generating on a regular basis of forcing people to renew certificates for that reason. So it's kind of like they've gone against what they originally were vouching for when they created the OSCP and their certification part.
Yeah, well, and OffSec was in a different place at a different time, I'm sure. I don't know what that looked like, when they were first created. I do have a
Thanks for calling me old. Yeah.
I do have a relationship with Jim O'Gorman, who's one of the founders, of OffSec. And so when it was offensive security. And so it's just different. It was a different time. There were different needs to be met. And the DoD is constantly changing, which is who I believe that this implementation was probably designed for. And they have new requirements that actually just came out this year that requires those certifications to be renewed. I don't know what it looked like before. I didn't really care before. But now that I'm kind of in the training sector with that, I kind of focus a little bit more on and am a little bit more interested in what's going on. And so, yeah, I totally agree. But Heath Adams, who's the CEO of TCM Security and like one of the leading competitors for OffSec right now, and who, by the way, I get the feeling probably doesn't like OffSec too much because he went out and created an organization that offers different opportunities. He said it best. He said, hey, it was a good financial decision for them. They needed to meet some requirements that some organizations required. And then that was just point blank. There's a lot of controversy on whether or not, it's hard because prices have gone up. Things seem to be unattainable now because, for one, inflation. Two, practitioners just don't have the money to pay for some of these certifications. So I completely get that. But aside from that, I personally think I don't have a problem with the OSCP Plus. I'm not going to go take it. I'm not even going to go take my OSCP because I don't need it. The point is, take it if you need it, and then don't worry about it if you don't need it.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
And I guess, branching out from that, you said that you work and know people at OffSec. So you are one of the trainers, right? At Black Hat.
Yeah.
OffSec courses. Yep.
So I got the awesome opportunity to teach OffSec SOC 200 course last year at Black Hat USA. It leads into the OSDA. It's the OffSec Defense Analyst certification. It was new last year, so we were testing the waters to see how it would go. Honestly, the content was really interesting because I had just actually last year at the time that I taught it, I was in still a blue team role. And so it was really interesting to me. It focused on a specific SIEM solution. And so we kind of complemented the work and the content that OffSec had and added some additional, and I say I teach for a company called Applied Technology Academy. And so we have a group of advanced cybersecurity instructors within that organization that teach these OffSec certifications. We also teach Hack the Box. We have a couple of other partnerships that we're looking forward to teach instructor-led training soon, but it's all advanced security, certifications and training. And we do self-created training. Like I built out an Active Directory hacking course recently for someone because there wasn't a need there wasn't an industry course that met the need that the client needed. Or that the client had. And so I just built it out for them and they ran with that. And then we certified them internally. So I got to teach that last year. And we supplemented the content that OffSec had with additional active practitioner information that said, okay, this is what you learned for the certification and to pass, but here's additional information and additional skills and tools that you're going to need to know to actually do this in the real world. I think with the OSCP and some of the other like 300 level OffSec courses, it's definitely needed because all of the instructors that I teach with are active practitioners in whatever field that they're working in, red team, pen testing. We've got exploit developers, reverse engineers. And so they bring in this industry knowledge from their full-time roles and teach it into their course. So they're teaching you, offensive security, exploit development, it's the EXP 301 course, but they're also teaching you everything that you need to know from a practitioner perspective. So that's really cool. So I got to teach that at Black Hat alongside Pen 200 and EXP 401, which is OffSec's like leading reverse engineer. It's like the advanced Windows exploitation certification. So it was a really cool experience, but we also teach courses online live throughout the year. And I've been teaching with them for about 2.5 years now. And I'm kind of their, I lead their instructor group because of my tenure. And so it's been really good. I've been really excited and I'm excited to develop out some of the instructor-led training for Hack the Box. But for offensive security, Applied Technology Academy is the exclusive government partner for the US with OffSec. And so we are the ones that will teach any OffSec courses to the US government. And we're also one of the, we're one of the few North America training partners. There's a couple of others, but then we are also the exclusive Black Hat training partner for OffSec. So Applied Technology Academy has like a ton of stuff going for them right now, which I've been excited to see grow the past couple of years. So it's been fun. Lots of learning.
To help grow, obviously. And Yeah, no, that sounds good. I mean, to be honest, I'd never kind of heard of it until I saw you posting about it on LinkedIn a couple of times and commenting on a few things. I had a look at it, and the stuff looks pretty interesting.
Yeah. I think that the whole point of the advanced team is to teach the certification, because for the most part, that's what people go and they buy the licenses for. But we also want to add value that's going to be, there's a lot of stuff that you learn, for example, in the OSCP that I would have never applied. And I haven't taken the OSCP, but I've reviewed the content plenty because I've done course development for it. I've never applied some of those skills in a real world situation.
No, 100%.
Yeah, I've needed additional skills that I didn't get from that content. So it's like it's all supplemental. You can't just take one thing at face value and say, yep, I got my OSCP. I'm a pen tester now. Doesn't work like that.
Well, to be fair, they do say, and similar to the Hack the Box certifications and things like that, I went through the Hack the Box certified bug bounty hunter program certification training and everything recently. It's not too bad. It's pretty good, right? But, they'd always caveat and say, this is kind of just the baseline. It's like the stepping stone, because you still have to go and do your research. You have to go and learn different things. You still have to learn to do some scripting and AD and a whole bunch of other things that are like really, really important to make you well-rounded at what you do. So it's kind of the stepping stone. So the content is never going to be, 100%. Like, yeah, that's it. I can go out into the world now and do everything. Like, even if there are some organizations out there that tell you, once you have this certification and do this 120 multiple choice questions, you are a pen tester. Shout out to them. They know who they are. But, well, yeah, I wasn't going to do that, but yeah, good one. Okay. And then, so, I mean, it is important to understand that it is kind of the stepping stone. I do have a question for you guys particularly you, Alex, because you're more of a newer OSCP generation. But is the OSCP song still a thing, the theme song?
No, I have not heard.
If you have not heard it, have you heard it, Bailey?
I have not.
There is legitimately, when I did my OSCP, they debuted at Blackout one year. There is legitimately a reggae rap song called Try Harder.
Shut up.
I'm not even kidding. Go Google OSCP Try Harder. There's like a legitimate, it's a full-blown song, like very like reggae.
Well, you came from a day where they were, when the OSCP had a heavy focus on buffer overflow, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it had to... Yeah.
So I know. I mean, I get it now, but it was never something that I really understood when I was training for my OSCP.
Yeah.
But once they started, and I believe that's where the OSCP Plus is actually kind of increased in difficulty, is focus on Active Directory. And I actually adore what they've done with it, because Active Directory I see very often. Buffer overflow, never seen it in the wild.
Never.
Right?
Yeah. I love Active Directory hacking.
It's my favorite freaking place to be.
I love me some PowerView and some PowerShell Empire.
Hell yeah, she gets it. I love it. Yes.
Yeah.
Have you ever used what was it called? It goes along with Empire. It's frick, dude. Star something. Oh, piss. It's like equated to Death Star or something like that. Okay, never mind. It's a graphical user interface that like puts PowerShell Empire to use.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Bloodhound to PowerShell Empire.
Killer. Yeah,
Star Killer. Ooh. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Yep.
All right, awesome. So, Bailey and Alex obviously jump in as well, but we are coming into the Christmas period. Feliz Navidad and all that jazz. So, I'm curious, we already talked about a little bit online safety for families and things like that. Everybody's going to be at home over, the next couple of weeks, the next few weeks and everything like that with the holidays. This is obviously prime time for scams, particularly shopping scams, particularly fraud, all those types of things, people buying shit off Marketplace, getting scammed and whatever. Yeah. I'm curious what your guys' opinions are on how can families stay safe not to get scammed over the holiday period. What are some of the things to look out for the people that don't already know?
Yeah. For me, I think a lot of it boils down to phishing scams, and color your phishing scam whatever color you want to. Specifically, I think of like and I've gotten them too recently, the smishing scams that are like your USPS or your UPS or your FedEx package is stuck at a warehouse. Please come get it by clicking this link. And it's like, okay, people are buying a lot of stuff online, and if I were to get that like around Valentine's Day, like I wouldn't care, but I'm buying a lot of stuff online. Actually, I'm pretty sure like 99% of the gifts that I have for my family, I bought off Amazon or something like that. So to get something like that, and if you don't know to recognize it, it's like, that's a problem. Oh, I should probably click that link, but people are like, oh my gosh, this train set that I bought for my child, it's going to ruin Christmas if I don't have it. So I better go get it from the warehouse. And then they ask you for like your social to confirm, your credit card that you can confirm that you bought it and all of this stuff. And I think it boils down to, again, like that phishing kind of like psychology thing. Like, don't just rush to do something because someone said it's urgent. You need to do this now or we're going to light your package on fire. Like, people are so quick to like, oh my gosh. I think that's a big thing.
Yeah, paying attention to what it is and double checking, like just validate that it's correct.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are plenty of other like phishing or scammy things that we could talk about. It all boils down to phishing, whether you call it SMS phish, voice phishing, people calling you because you doing basically the same thing, and they're calling you because they're like, hey, if you want to access your package or you need to get into your bank account, like just let me know what your multi-factor code is so I can help you. I can help facilitate it. It's like, okay, don't give people your multi-factor codes. If someone's asking you for something that has anything to do with finances or anything that you might have purchased, just hang up and then call the company that you think it's coming from. That's what I always do. When I get like a phishing email or a text message that seems like it's like, because sometimes you don't know, like sometimes things look and smell kind of right, but you're not sure. And so for example, I got an email that was like, hey, something with TurboTax. And, if you file your taxes in the US with TurboTax, like this needs your attention. And in my mind, I'm like, this looks like a legitimate email. However, if there's something that TurboTax needs to let me know, it's going to be in like my inbox on my, my online portal. So I'm going to go to the website that I know is the right website, log in, and then see if there's anything. And actually, I recently have done a little bit more research on Gen AI and using voiceovers, like taking voice from family and friends. And people have been scammed because they hear like their daughter, their grandparents, their husband saying things in the phone that's just a voice generated thing out of AI. And people are, getting like, oh, my husband's calling me and he's trapped in a well and I need to send him $3,000 to pay the fire department.
That's awesome.
So I always recommend people just to call the person. If you have like someone sent you a text message and they're like, hey, this is so-and-so. Okay, we'll call so-and-so and say, hey, is this you? Do you need this? No, using the known phone number that they actually have.
Yeah, 100%. The only one I would add to it is don't buy the shit from random Instagram posts that tell you that is the most amazing product ever and give all this like 80% discount today only, or just pay for shipping and everything like that, because the information that you're giving those people is definitely being sold or used for something nefarious. Because you'll watch the video or the advert for one of those things, and then you'll see an advert for the same thing with a different account like 10 minutes later in your reels and stuff like that. So they are 100% scammy. Don't chuck your credit card shit into that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the same stock image, but like two different companies selling the same thing. That's it's like I see this meme on Yeah, I know. It's like what you thought you bought and what you got on off of Temu or whatever.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
talked about Temu. Like, don't get me wrong, man. Some of the stuff from Temu is not too bad. Like, but I did say to Alex, I have some stuff from Temu that I purchased, but like, again, that's probably something to call out as well. Like, if you are buying stuff online, use things like Apple Pay because it changes your credit card number. Like, it doesn't send your credit card information to the company.
Yeah.
So if you're buying from Temu and stuff like that, pay with Apple Pay because it's going to use a token to do the purchase. It's not going to give your credit card details. But if you input your credit card information into the app or into the website, then you're pretty much asking for trouble, right? But as I said, like, I wouldn't buy anything off Temu that is going to be that my life is going to rely on, you know, because I have some things for my motorbike, but they're just aesthetic, they're just cosmetic things. Like, I'm not going to buy a helmet off Temu or like something like that, or the things that are going to save my life. But yeah, just definitely be careful with that stuff.
Yeah, I would never honestly buy, and this is just me personally, I would never buy anything electronic that's like something that I would rely on for a computer off of like Temu or anything like that, because I don't know what technology is in that. And so I just bought myself a pair of like the AirPods that are like the ear over ear because I travel a lot, and I have the Aftershocks like bone conductor headphones, and they're so hard to hear on airplanes. So I bought myself some nice AirPods that I can go over my ears, has the noise canceling. I would never buy something like that off of Temu because you have no idea what it's going to be. You could get the garbage thing. But when it comes to like actual other IoT devices like a security system or a fire alarm or something like that, I would never buy it off of a like non-reputable website because for one, I mean, I don't know what spyware or anything like that I'm introducing into my home network. I don't know what that thing is going to start recording on me. Is it going to listen to my voice? If I ever get like IoT devices like Amazon Alexa or anything like that, I always tend to go in first thing and remove all of just like clear out all of the settings and basically only add settings that I specifically want. Cause my husband's kind of a spook. So he like doesn't like any of that stuff. And so I'm like trying to do my due diligence and I'm like, okay, we at least shut off why does my Alexa need to connect to my microwave? And why does she need to know where the location is? Like, you're in my house. That's it. That's all you need to know. So that sort of stuff. I mean, we get a lot of like nice, fun devices.
Well, I mean, there was, there have been some like IoT things happen, in recent times. The baby cam, like the baby camera that
terrifying.
Had the guy, like the dad that had to run upstairs because he thought there was a man in his like kid's room, but it was just somebody that had hacked the camera and was just making like monster sounds at the kid and scaring the kid through the camera, which is absolutely terrifying. But yeah, I know that it's like just like see that it's like rah, like
cry for me.
Yeah, exactly like that, right? Exactly like that. Yeah. But that is absolutely wild. But then the other one was the robot vacuum cleaner that was from one of the Asian countries that was taking photos of people and it was literally taking photos of people walking around the house nude and everything like that and uploading it to the cloud.
So Jesus, scary. Man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, never.
Just check what everything has access to. Like, just be careful where you buy it. But yeah, probably don't buy things that have cameras and transmitting capability and things like that off dodgy websites because you're right. Yeah. Like, you don't know where it's
I feel bad for anybody who like hacks a camera system in my house. It gets creepy up in this bitch.
Well, dude, all the... Sorry, you go, Bailey.
No, I have my fair share of IoT devices in my house, like security practitioners and stuff. I got a Roomba right there, it's just life, it's convenience. It's convenience of the stuff. However, buy from reputable dealers on actual websites, like buy from the dealer website, buy from Amazon or Walmart where like where your stuff is coming from. If you buy off Amazon though, you got to be careful because you got to look for third party sellers. You could buy like a Roomba off the iRobot store, or you could buy it from like Joe's Crab Shack, in Beijing.
100%.
Like you have no idea that's actually going to be a Roomba.
Yeah, I as I said, I bought some things on Temu, like for my motorbike. I bought like an LED headlight, right, for my bike. And then legitimately I was looking for like accessories for Harley Davidson on Amazon, and I found the exact same headlight, just a different company. And I was like, so some of the stuff that you're getting from Temu is the same as some of the stuff you're getting on Amazon. So you do have to be careful.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's easy to get caught up in the convenience thing. I even mentioned it like when as we were getting like set up for this podcast, I was like, I need the convenience of this. I don't need the security of this. Chrome was blocking my microphone, and I was like, I don't want Chrome to block my microphone. I don't need security right now. I need my microphone to work. And so I know sometimes we like, we straddle the thin line of like, is it convenient or is it secure? So you just have to make an educated, assumption about, are you willing to take the risk of your robot cleaning vacuum, taking pictures of you in the nude? It's just a risk.
I mean, it's definitely a risk, but I can also assure you if that happened in my house, it's not a reward. So like they're not getting anything good. But it's the same. It's the same. The risk versus reward and security when you're inputting your credit card into stuff. Like, do you need to put your credit card in there? Are you desperate for that Star Wars doll? Yes, I am. Do I trust this website? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But I want that Star Wars doll in 3 days. So let's go.
Yeah. Well, another thing is I've always heard that it's best practice, and I use Apple Pay, so I don't really have to worry about it. But if you don't have anything like that set up, it's always best to use a credit card over a debit card, because at least credit cards, they don't you have a limit, right? Like if you have X dollars in your debit account, someone can pull that out really quickly. But if you use a credit card, you usually have a limit. Usually there's a little bit more protection on them, because if you have erroneous charges on there that people are like, whoa, you were buying a lot of, a lot of robots, a lot of Roombas off of this Temu website, Alibaba.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, because a lot of people who lose all their money are the ones that put their debit cards in, right?
Yeah.
Because it comes straight out of their bank account, straight out of their savings, things like that. Yeah. So, just be careful.
A lot of people don't have that kind of protection put on their bank accounts. I do, because like we were talking about earlier, Bailey, because I do know, right? A lot of us are aware, and we do have a focus on security. So, with both my bank accounts, I mean, they understand that if something is purchased multiple times in a short amount of time, cut it. You know what I mean? Silence my accounts immediately. I don't care if I can't use it. I'll call you. But a lot of people don't. You're absolutely right. And then they end up having their entire life savings taken away from them when they could have just used, a MasterCard or something like that. I agree with you. That's all I'm trying to say.
I have location-based spending set up as well. So if purchases are happening away from kind of Australia, overseas, basically they'll get blocked, and then I have to approve it. So, I mean, there's a lot of that there, but it obviously doesn't help me if I get hacked in Australia. Yeah, but it's a pretty small country, so less likely.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good to go.
All right, that brings us to the end of episode 1, season 2 of the Blackbox Diaries. A massive thank you to Bailey Marshall for joining us today. Super important to check out her YouTube channel and her company, The Security Rex. And if you get a chance, also potentially go and check out the courses that she delivers, because that's something that I'll be doing, because they sound absolutely killer.
Same.
Hopefully you had fun, Bailey.
I did. This was a hoot. I had a great time.
Wow, that sounded really forced, but I appreciate it. Just kidding. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, dude. And anyway, we'll be back next week with episode 2. More special guests to come, more content to come. If you do like what we're doing, like and subscribe. Stick around for season 2. It's going to be a cracker, and we will see you next week.